And we are live. Hi. Hi, this is Eric from logboxreview.com, and welcome to the show. And welcome to a new thing that I'm trying out here. And I've got some wonderful guests here to help me out with this little experimental thing. What is this thing, you might be asking yourself? Well, it is a recommendation show, if you will. We're going to recommend 5 comic books, one from each of us, and then we're going to come together in a consensual way. Ooh. to give you, the audience, a totally awesome week of comics, with the added caveat that these comics have to do with a particular theme. And of course, this being the first show of this totally awesome week of comics, I have chosen the wonderfully obvious theme of first. And so I'm very excited to welcome my guests and see what or how they interpreted this theme. And so first up, I have Travis here, a longtime friend of mine. Say hi, Travis.
Evening.
So the audio version of this will people can recognize who is talking. And next we have Matt. Hey, Matt.
Hello.
And then last but not least, certainly, of course, Damien, otherwise known as Sleepy Reader 666 on YouTube.
Greetings, everyone. Glad to be here.
And let's see. I said the gentleman could interview themselves. Yes, introduce themselves. So, Travis, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about what you do in the comic book realm online?
I'm Travis. I have a channel, Oddfellows Thoughts, where I chat about comics. It's probably been 2+ years since I've actually put anything on there.
Wow.
Yeah, something like that. It's been a long time.
Isn't that 10 years in COVID years?
It feels like it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully someday I get back to that. But don't watch the really early videos, but the later videos are somewhat relevant to the world of comics. Anyway.
Yeah. All right, Matt.
Yeah. Hi. I'm Matt. I do Wednesday Serial on YouTube and occasionally pump out a 2-hour video or something talking about an entire run of what I've read recently. Seems to be how I'm doing it, because why make content anybody wants to watch? And and then,
well, we're off to a good start then.
Right. And sometimes I'm lucky enough to do a podcast with my buddy Damien.
Yes, our podcast is called Never Stay Dead.
Oh yeah.
Matt is the brilliant one who comes up with all the great theories, and I'm the one who keeps saying, but let's talk about the plot too.
Yeah, I love you guys' show. I like that.
Thank you.
The back and forth that you guys have with each other and the different perspectives. It's really great.
Well, that's good news, because you are our pod father. So
It's true.
If no one else loves it, at least you do.
But you also do you have a YouTube channel as well.
I have a YouTube channel called Sleepy Reader 666, which is very busy all the time. More content than any one person could watch. And always talking about comic books there in various ways. And you can follow me on Twitter, where I am apparently posting every comic book I read as I read it.
Are you doing that 500? What is it? 500?
The supposed
challenge?
500 comics goal thing.
Yeah,
it's a hashtag.
Yeah.
I'm not worrying about exactly what number I hit. It's just a good way to share with all the other people who are posting what comics they're reading as they read them.
What number are you at now?
I think I'm up to 94.
Yeah.
So I'm finding I average about
won't be a challenge, right?
Sorry?
500 won't be a challenge.
I should
right?
easily hit 600. I seem to do about 2 a day on average. Some days more, some days less. But
I hit 500 already.
Really?
Yeah. I've read a decade's worth of Daredevil in the last month, and I'm starting on some other stuff. And it depends how you count manga.
He grinds them up into powder and snorts them up his nose. It's much quicker that way.
That's how I like my Frank Miller.
Yeah. Oh, we're off to a good start. All righty. All right. Well, thank you all for doing that. And Travis, I was looking this up. The last time that you and I were on an episode of the podcast together was back in late August of 2020. So it's been a while. However, Damien and Matt were last on together in July of 2018. So we were talking about the Never Stay Dead podcast on that.
Wow, we've been doing it a long
That was
time.
live, right?
And then Damien, the last time you were on my show. Now I've been lucky to have been invited by you to appear a few times on your channel.
Yeah, just a week ago, I think you were on my channel.
Yeah. And
Good times.
So this was the Star Trek Voyager season 1 that we did, the overview that we did in February of 2021.
Yes.
So
I'm
anyway,
looking that up.
And you've been a bad boy on your Star Trek Voyager.
yes, I
watching.
have. Yeah. There's also all other kinds of Star Trek I have to
Too much Star
watch it
Trek.
as well. Yeah. All righty. So let's get right into it. We're going to start our totally awesome week of comics. I will go first. I'm recommending what I'm referring to as the Monday book. Travis will do the Tuesday book. Oh, that works out. Travis, yeah. Matt will do Wednesday because he had the brilliant idea that he should be Wednesday, as he should. And then Damien will do Thursday. All right. So like I said, the theme here is first. And so what I told these gentlemen is to interpret that however they wish. It could be your first comic that you ever read. It could be a number 1 comic that you particularly enjoy and want to share. Or it could be some other way of interpreting what first means. And since that was something that I did not explain very well at the very beginning when I asked these gentlemen to join me, I said I would go first and provide how I've interpreted this. So with all due apologies to everyone, because I suck at the video thing and showing comics on camera, but this is my choice here. This is E-Man number 1 from First Comics. So I get a bunch of firsts with just this one book, and like it matters. This is also the first book in my long boxes in the E's. So it's a quadruple threat, triple threat. I don't know. It's a first threat. That's all I know. Are you guys familiar with E-Man? Have you ever heard of this?
No.
Yes.
I've heard of the name, and that's about it.
E-Man was created by Nicola Cuddy and Joe Staten.
That's correct.
Charlton Comics. And for some reason, Charlton Comics gave them the copyright.
Yeah.
So they owned it, and they took it around to different publishers over the years.
Yes.
Kind of a cult character when I came into comics in the mid 70s.
Really? So
Yep.
that didn't just go along with all the other stuff that went to DC, huh?
No,
They
somehow
got rid
I
of it
don't know how
earlier
they finagled that.
So that was in 1973, 74, I believe, when they started this, and I think they had a 10-issue run at that time.
Okay.
And but this issue number 1 from First Comics was from it was published in December 1982 with a cover date of April 1983. And I'm not entirely sure how I acquired this. I found it somewhere along with a few other First Comics.
Quarterbins?
Yeah, it was. I'm trying to think of who's the great Batman artist from the 70s and 80s that I'm blanking his
Aparo?
name. No,
Tomorrow. Not
he
a
did
problem.
covers. He did covers for DC. And people are gonna just
You mean
slap me upside.
Neil Adams?
Neal Adams, yes.
I've heard of him.
Yeah.
So
Who's that?
thank you. Neil Adams also he has like a character or two that he I think that's who I'm thinking of. Anyway, doesn't matter because I'm not here to talk about Neil Adams. I'm here to talk about Joe Staten's and Nick Cody's. How'd you pronounce that, Damien?
I say Cuddy, but I don't
Cuddy.
know if
You're
I'm
probably. I think
accurate on
that sounds better.
You
than
might have a
Cody.
Ditko situation where you want to say something else.
Anyway, so this issue is written by not Mr. Cuddy, but Martin Pascoe wrote this. Joe Staten, of course, did the art with inks and colors by Bruce Patterson and edited by Mike Gold. So E-Man is a particularly weird amalgamation of things. Both Cuddy and Staten wanted to do a humor book, not necessarily like gags and whatnot, but they wanted to do a humor comic that also had something to say. is kind of my interpretation of what E-Man was supposed to be about. Maybe they did that in that original run. I will say, if you are a fan of Mad Magazine and the gags in Mad Magazine, and with the visual gags and the stuff that they would write, on walls and posters and just stuff, right? All this detritus that they throw in there. This is a comic for you. If you're a fan of Plastic Man, E-Man, which I don't know if you guys can see this on the cover, but that that stylized E on his chest actually says E equals MC squared.
Right.
Because E-Man is actually a sentient, what is it? What they say it? A packet of sentient energy created as a star went nova. And then he wandered the universe and then eventually came to Earth, and took on the form of a man and decided to become a superhero, as a packet of sentient energy would like to do. And what happens here is, so that the woman on the cover here, that's his friend Nova Kane. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I forgot to mention
Lots of clever puns involved.
Yeah, E-Man's secret identity is oh shoot, what is it? Alec Tron. Right. Okay. So you kind of get the gist of what they're going for here, right? But one of the inspirations for this book by Mr. Cuddy was he liked Plastic Man, and so let me see if I can find this. So what I'm going to show these guys here in the panels is E-Man. Now I can't see a damn thing. So you can see the shape changing he does here.
Mm-hmm.
So he's energy, but he can transform his energy body into various forms, sort of like how Plastic Man does his shtick, right? And then, like I said, there's a lot of gag stuff, and you get that splash page right here. Tell me that doesn't look like something in Mad Magazine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that really is the vibe they're going for. Let's see here. Like I said, if you're a fan of humor comics, if you like Mad Magazine, there's a lot to absorb. In that quick panel that I just showed you on the camera there was so many things, like the bumper stickers on the cars, the license plates, the signs in the background. They're throwing everything and anything onto the page, and it's throughout the entire book that you get all these gags and these jokes and the parodies. There's a character in here who is a parody of Steven Spielberg, who's in cahoots with the villain of the story, which is the brain from Sirius. And it is a giant alien brain in a spaceship. So yeah.
Does it take itself very seriously?
Oh no. No. Which is funny, because that's kind of what, from what I understood, Cuddy, that's what he wanted. He wanted to do something having to do with science, but also have something to say, but not be a parody of superhero comics. Like I said, I don't think that's the vibe that Martin Pasco was going for in this. So I find it really curious, because Joe Staton did the art for both. I wonder how that relationship went, because it seems like the two writers are doing different things. But I also have not read any other E-Man issues besides this one. I don't have any in my collection. So a couple more things, and then I'll be done. I'll hand it over to Travis. The letter column was called Email. So this is about 10 years ish before we actually, widespread public use of email. So
right.
I thought that was kind of cute. And then finally, I don't know if I could show this very well on the camera. These first comics around this time in the early to mid 80s also had gag hostess ads. And so, am I showing that right? Yeah. So this is Raj 2000. Done by John Byrne, and so it's as it says here, it's a divertisement for Twinkle's Cakes. So it's nice. Raj 2000 versus Anti-Decay. So I don't know. I thought that kind of stuff was cute, but yeah. I will say I had my fill of
E-Man.
puns.
Ah.
Puns and I'll just say sophomoric humor that's in this book. But it was interesting to read something. Humor comics are not my forte, so it was really fun to read something that was outside my wheelhouse. Totally unexpected. So
Yeah, I've read a few Pascal versions and Cuddy versions, and I vaguely think I found the Cuddy ones better, but
Yeah,
I don't. It's so
I'd be-
long ago. I'm not
I'd
sure
be
if I'm right.
really curious to read something that Cuddy actually read wrote instead of Pascal. Nothing against Martin Pascal, just
But either way, they were very silly.
yeah, very silly. That's if you like silly comics, I get that's what you want to read is something along the lines of E-Man. So, all right, that's my Monday pick.
That was enough for me. Just the amount you said. I'm at my full.
You're good.
That's all the
you
E-Man
don't
you
need
I
anymore.
don't need to actually read any of the pages.
That's
Just
because you're from the planet Sirius.
Yes, that's right.
Oh,
That's right.
there we
Yeah,
go.
just you telling me what their names were, that was enough. I was done. I checked out. So
Well, you can't check out on your pick, Travis. What is your pick for Tuesday?
So I went with Infinity Inc. Issue number 1.
Ooh, yeah.
For a number
Nice.
one for a number of reasons. Obviously it being a number 1, it being I believe it is the first comic that I actually got in on the ground floor as an issue number 1 of a long running series of comics. I was reading Titans at the same time, and then this came along. Clearly not as popular as the Titans. Yeah, so it's a number 1 for me for that. It's also a number 1, and this is the first comic that I read to my eldest child to get them introduced into
Really?
reading comics. Yep. This is
That's cool.
because the premise of the comic is you've got the old Justice Society. This is Earth 2. Back when there still was an Earth 2. Is there still an Earth 2? All right. And it's all youngins. It's all the kids. It's all the kids showing up and saying, "Hey, we want to be part of the Justice Society," and the Justice Society being a bunch of gray-haired know-it-alls and saying, "No, go away," and them making their own team.
Wait.
Used to kind of Go ahead.
So when you started getting this book,
Mhm.
you were those young whippersnappers, and now you've turned into the JSA.
Right, basically, yeah.
Sorry,
No.
go ahead.
100%. 100%. That's for sure. So I used to think that this was like the first appearance of these people, but I believe it's actually not. I think they were actually introduced in an All-Star Squadron issues, and for the purpose of making this book. That's the reason they were created. Actually, 3 years before the book came out, Roy and Danny Thomas had come up with the idea and then floated it with Jerry Ordway and Mike Maclan, and they do the art. They actually, throughout the series for a while, they swap art duties. Some of the issues, Ordway does the pencils and Maclan does the inking, and vice versa. Later on in the series, I think it's Todd McFarlane's first DC work is in it. And to be honest with you, when that change happened, I absolutely hated it. But I love the book. I still like the book this day. It's a story of the 80s. It came out in 84. So it's definitely 80s comics as far as how it's written and that style and whatnot. I like the classic art. To me, this is 80s art, and I really enjoy that 70s, 80s look of style of work in it. I think when I bought this, I did not read there's actually a column in the back, so I read it to talk about it. And there was a lot of prep work to this book. They, like I said, they in advance put these characters in other books so they could have, its own series, and they had to shoehorn that stuff in and figure out how they're going to shoehorn those characters in, so then they could come up with their own book. But yeah, like I said, I get a kick out of it, the characters and whatnot, and the unfortunate thing is the downside to this is the first issue really only introduces like 4 characters, and then the next issue gets more into the rest of those characters and whatnot. So
Well, help me out here. Who are the characters?
So of the Infinity Inc. actual Infinity Inc. characters, the new ones, it's Nucleon, who becomes Atom Smasher later on. Silver Scarab, Jade, and Obsidian are the new people. Braveway Junior, who is the junior of Brainwave in Earth 2. He's a pretty heavyweight villain, but he, of course, is a good guy. And then, of course, that's part of the story throughout the series is him having to carry the burden of the fact that his dad is a mastermind criminal. That's the new people that are in it. And then it has Star Spangled Kid, Huntress, and Power Girl all kind of dovetail themselves, because this first issue, they kind of crash, they party crash the JSA, because the JSA is in a panic because they, in All-Star Squadrons, they had put the Injustice Society in the dimension of Limbo, and they were going to bring them back to put them on trial. And when they go to bring them back, they can't find them. So they're now concerned that they've escaped. So they've called together the Justice Society to deal with this issue. And Superman is like off saving somewhere else. And, all their other heavy hitters are gone. And of course the kids show up to say, hey, you need help. We're here to help. And they don't like the party crashers. And basically vote them out. They vote them out. Hawkman is in charge of they vote them out. Northwind's another character that's not on the cover. That's in the book too.
Fury too is missing, right? I'm not seeing her.
Yeah, you're right. Fury's not on there either. And Fury, of course, ends up being a character that gets used in comics. What, 7, 8? When did Sandman come out?
Mm-hmm. Well, and Silver Scarab too.
Yeah. So the characters gets used other places and whatnot. And like I said, I've always kind of liked Earth 2 too, just because it's a little different than the standard. Whatever. I mean, Robin wears pants, for instance, and and all the heroes have gray.
1,000% better when Robin wears pants.
Exactly. And Huntress is,
Huntress.
a Wayne. Yeah. But yeah.
Right.
So, but no, it's like I said, I enjoyed the book. Went 50 issues, a couple annuals and whatnot, and it took me 30 years to get the final issue.
Really?
Oh wow.
Yeah, because my comic book store at the time, for whatever reason, just decided not to order the last issue.
Oh my
so
God.
I didn't get it, and it took forever to get it. Then,
see, when we were reading comics back and forth, Travis, we were both reading reading Titans, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would get Legion, and you would read those issues, and you were getting Infinity, and I would read your issues, and so for many years I didn't have any issues of Infinity Inc. So. I finally went back and got the first year of books. So we'll see if I get more after that.
I assume it's pretty affordable to collect at this point.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
So anybody who's interested could easily either order online or dig up in their store.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like I said, for me, the big thing is I picked it up because it's the first comic read to my eldest kid.
That's a great.
It's a good
really
first.
Good. Yep.
Very good first.
Yeah. All right.
Before we carry on, I have a quick question, Eric, for you off of that Infinity, because when Travis was describing it, I was getting a lot of Rebels vibes. Does that line up for you? Does that kind of remind you of Rebels? And was Rebels after Infinity? I don't know my DC timeline.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're talking about. Yeah, I was gonna say because that was a 90s-ish book, right?
Yeah, 90s, 80s DC bleeds.
Oh, it would have been the late 80s, because by the time we got into the 90s, that was my gap in reading, and it had come out before I had stopped reading, because I've got like the first issues that I got. Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
All right, Travis, that's a great book for Tuesday. Thank you for that. I love that whole. It's the first book you read to your firstborn, so that's awesome. All right, Matt, you're up. Wednesday serial. What do you have in store for our wonderful audience?
So when you said first, I wanted to think of something that might be, accessible for people, but, something that might not have heard of. So I thought I'd go for,
See, I thought you might do something like that. So this is awesome.
Well, hold on. I have to get my background going away.
You went for a comic called The Blur.
Yes.
Fantastic Four #1. You'll excuse me, I didn't get my first printing.
Oh, darn. It's
The
no
one you
good
have
if you don't
stashed
have
away?
the first print.
You didn't want to crack it. You didn't want to crack the case.
Right.
What is this four of fantastic of which you speak?
Well, when you said first, I thought, what is first? Because I was like, Ninja Turtles #1. Nah.
I would have bet
And
money
look-
on that.
Well, and I was like, well, I mean, this is like the first comic that kicked off everything that I know about
Mhm.
comics as they are and whatnot. I never really read it. And so,
Really?
yeah, I've never really gone back to a lot of the early stuff. I know Damien and I read some early Fantastic Four, but that was the Galactus or was it the Galactus
We
trilogy?
did Galactus and we did the first Black Panther.
Right, which was like
But
the issue
that's
right
probably
after.
like 6 years later, right? Or 5 years later from
Yeah, somewhere in there. I don't
maybe
know.
4 years later. Anyway, yeah.
But I've been collecting a lot of Fantastic Four and Daredevil, and so I thought I'd go for this, and it was fascinating to see how much was there that I kind of expected. I mean, I'm sure you all know Mr. Fantastic, the Thing, the Human Torch, though not the first Human Torch, so I don't know how readers felt about that at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And really the first one you really see is the Invisible Girl, and they make this whole deal about her being like a ghost and her freaking out this cabbie, which is anachronistic in itself now, but wouldn't have been until very recently.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What was really funny, and I'm cheating here, but I got this also recently, is a Marvel recently put out this anniversary tribute where they took the script and then redrew all the pages of the first issue of Fantastic Four and then parts of the 4th annual. But I was only really interested in the first issue part here, and it's fascinating to me because this is a beautiful failure. The idea of let's take the Fantastic Four, cut out Jack Kirby, and just leave Stan Lee is just mind-boggling. But the comparison's actually really interesting. Like how Jack Kirby does the Human Torch in the first issue is completely different than how we see him normally, even later in their own run. It's very like a man of flame, not like the superhero-esque look, I guess, more like an actual just torch that's semi-man shaped. And the way they go about it. And there's a lot of weird anachronisms that go back and forth between these two. Like the very opening shot is, we find out later, it's Mr. Fantastic. We just see some old man smoking a pipe and he fires a gun into the sky. And as Kirby had it, it was like this smoke cloud that read, like calling the Fantastic Four. And then in the tribute issue, it's just the 4 that we know, like the icon. Like they already have that all established and everything. And I don't know, there's a lot of that there to get Ben Grimm up to fly the fated mission that gets them their powers that they just glance past. Like I've seen other takes on the story and it's much more belabored, right? There it's all in 2 pages. The way that Sue gets Ben Grimm to fly them is to Gotham, like calls him a coward and say, you don't want those commies to win. And it's like, oh yeah, this is from the 60s.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of crazy to see that like space race and kind of, I don't want to say xenophobia necessarily, but like that tension of that time is what really fueled all of Marvel Comics at this origin point. And just that idea of it was kind of like, oh, that's really interesting how things unfolded over time. And reading it now, especially with all the comics history knowledge and whatnot I have, like this is what was bore out of the comics code, forcing things to go a different way. And seeing how kind of close they butt up to a number of the rules and kind of some horror comic tropes, and how it steers away very quickly from that in later issues, but at the very beginning, it's still kind of in that tradition. And even Spider-Man at that point is interesting. It's more in the tradition of horror comics and then veers more towards superhero as it goes, rather than right from the jump when you think they'd need it at this point to get away from the code. So I don't know. You said first. That's what I landed on.
That's a great interpretation of that. I assume you other two gentlemen have read Fantastic Four #1 at some point, right?
Many times.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think I've only encountered it within the last 10 years
Really?
myself.
okay.
Yeah. But and interestingly, I first read it in an old paperback size reprint, black and white reprint.
Like the Essential Collection?
It wasn't one of the essentials, but it was like a I don't have one at near my desk,
Digest.
but paperback size. So it was a weird way to read that, but I bumped on the whole the way that Sue especially. It's funny you mentioned that part, but the way Sue shamed Ben into it, and then the whole commie thing. Yeah, it's
Right.
great for a piece of history and where at least Stan was, in the way he was interpreting the world at that time, and thought, young hip people of the 60s would want to read about something like this. So it's really interesting. Yeah.
Do you recall, Matt, if they refer to themselves as superheroes in the first issue?
Oh God. They say heroes, I believe.
They do.
Because
Okay.
they say because what is it, like, right as you can tell Mr. Fantastic's gearing up for a speech again, and like the first half of this comic, the second half is all about the Mole Man, and there's all
Right.
these crazy ideas that get thrown out like every other page, and now this would be 12 issues at least. Mr. Fantastic's gearing up for a speech, and Ben kind of cuts him and says, "We don't need a speech from you. We know we got to use these powers for the betterment of mankind. That's right. We need to be heroes." And Johnny
Okay.
puts in the hands, and there's this very iconic, like the four of their hands over each other. And then the Norm Macdonald bit, and I'll be Mr. Fantastic.
Because thinking back on it, I feel like they're almost hedging their bets. Like maybe we're still doing monster comics, or maybe we're doing a superhero comic. We're not quite sure yet.
That might have been the genius of Stan, right? To maneuver that in that way, so that depending on which way the audience
Which way the
leaned,
wind blows,
he could go that way. So,
and I think the audience did start writing in and say, "Where are the costumes?" And that's when they came up with costumes.
Matt, you were going to say something?
That's true. I was going to say, if you can, this copy, this Marvel Milestone Edition, if you can get it, is so much cooler than the what are the reprints called now? Marvel Legends or whatever those are, the facsimile editions.
Those $1 ones.
Well, if you get them when they come out, yeah. Otherwise, they actually start going for collector's prices.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Try
to get that Spider-Man 300 reprint for $1. But those the really early ones actually take from the Marvel Masterworks for the most part, is my understanding. So they have the digital recoloring, which always sucks over Jack Kirby in particular. And so if you get this is reproduced a bit, but it is more or less the original colors, is my understanding. So it's, if you can, I mean, this doesn't go for a ton and preferable in my mind.
Well, it will now.
Yeah.
All because of you.
All right. Like I said, great choice, Matt. How do you follow that, Damien, with Thursday's pick?
With something really obscure.
Great. Awesome. Oh, British. I love it. All right.
Rogue Trooper.
All right.
On.
This is, in a sense, the first issue of Rogue Trooper. There's multiple ways to get Rogue Trooper. It is the first British 2000 AD character that I finally got into. I've tried to read other ones like Judge Dredd, their most famous one, and I just found them impenetrable in some fashion. Rogue Trooper is a science fiction story about a genetically engineered soldier, the last of all the troops of genetically engineered soldiers, because they were betrayed by someone on their side of the war. It's the South versus the North, and rogue troopers from the South, and they're fighting over a place called New Earth, NU, New Earth. And so it's full of kind of these old school science fiction war tropes, but played in such a deadly serious way. And so let me back up a little. This is from Quality Comics. It came out in 1986. Rogue Trooper originally appeared in 2000 AD in 1981. So there's
that's what I would have guessed would
Right.
have been the early 80s ish. So yeah, good. Go ahead.
So there's so these were reprinted for Americans, for the American audience, containing like 4 or 5 short vignette style stories that originally appeared in the weekly 2000 AD. And the trooper suspects they were betrayed, and so he goes rogue to find out who betrayed them. And his gun and his helmet and his backpack all have the brain chips of other members of his troop in them, and they talk to him. So you have this loner out in the wilderness of war on neither side, but he has these people to talk to who are his gun and gun. His, for some reason, Rogue Trooper's original name was Rogue anyway, and his gun's original name was Gunner. So right up there with E-Man's clever puns.
I was gonna say those silly Brits.
But the true joy of one of the joys of this, I mean, I love cheesy old science fiction, and I kind of like those old DC war comics, but they kind of feel repetitive, and the sci-fi gives it more flavor to me, more piquancy or something. And the early issues are all drawn by brain fart. Sorry, excuse me a second. The famous Dave Gibbons from Watchmen fame.
Okay.
And
wow.
he is very good already in 1981. Well, that's not so far away from when he did Watchmen anyway. But so the first few issues are drawn by him, and then other artists take over. But I highly recommend getting at least the first few issues if you like science fiction and if you like Dave Gibbons of these books, as I think because of the simple setup, it really benefits from these short 4 or 5 page stories. And you learn a little bit more about the Rogue Trooper and his world in each story. And then you get a very basic little war story, like where he goes up against a tank, or where he I don't know. I'm trying to think, where he gets captured, but then escapes at the last minute when the enemy attacks, because he gets captured by his own side. And there's several ways you can get this. You can, through back issues, you can get either this quality version. IDW published 8 issues called Rogue Trooper Classic. And I looked both of them up, and you can get them about $2 an issue at mycomicshop.com. You can also, I found this in a 50-cent bin, so you can search it out that way. You can get it digitally on Comixology. They have something which they call Welcome to New Earth. And then on 2000 AD's own digital platform, they have volume after volume after volume of it, each one 400 pages. And they're all listed as Tales of New Earth. So IDW and Quality Comics, which doesn't exist anymore, but IDW does, don't have the rights to it anymore. And so you can't get new trades or anything of it. But it is very affordable if you're willing to buy the back issues.
So I love the I love the color palette of that book.
Yeah.
It really makes it pop.
Yeah, it's very nice colors. I don't know if every edition has the same colors. And it might have been black and white originally.
That's what I would have
England.
expected. Yeah.
But
Travis,
yeah, it's colored very nicely in these quality ones.
Doesn't the coloring, the look of the book kind of remind you, it did me anyway, of the old Miracle Man reprints?
Oh, interesting. Yeah. And it could be the same colorist. I mean, it's around the same time they were bringing out reprints of Miracle Man in the US.
So, Damien, what you mentioned the DC war books, and that's the thing I immediately thought of too. Was are they taking any kind of or are they homaging those DC war books or war stories, or jumping off of that and going in a totally weird direction with things? Did you see any
I
similarities
would think
there?
they had read those DC war comics.
Yeah, that's what I would.
It has
would
that
expect.
vibe. I didn't
Okay,
notice
yeah.
any like sly mentions of the losers or of Sergeant Rock or that kind of thing. But it definitely feels like they've read that and absorbed that kind of thing. Although I do know that there's a long history of military war comics in England, which I have not read, but I've seen the titles of all these British war comics over the years. I would say, and I never thought this when reading Watchmen, but reading this, I feel like that Dave Gibbons was a huge Wally Wood fan. And so there's a lot of a Wally Wood feel to it.
Yeah, I could see that.
It's sort of Dave Gibbons en route from trying to be like Wally Wood to becoming the Dave Gibbons that we know, perhaps. But anyway, it's awesome. It's awesome art. Very simple stories. And very, I don't know if there's a certain phase of teenagerhood where you want to be kind of tough and have no feelings. And there's like stuff, and that sort of goes along with the whole war comic kind of thing. And it's like, good thing I genetically was created so I can't cry and things like that.
Is that a quote from something in the story?
A rough quote, yeah.
Okay. That's great. That's great.
But it reminds me of sometime during my teens, I was like, oh, I'm going to have no feelings.
Yeah. I went through my Mr. Spock phase when I was in middle school.
Yeah, it's that kind of thing. I mean, he does have feelings, but it's like he won't show them. He's too tough.
Wow, that's what great picks you guys have brought to this. That's so amazing. But we're not done, because we still have to pick a book for Friday, and we're going to do that by suggesting some alternates that we may have picked out here that we want to share, and then we will come to a consensus and pick one for our Friday pick. So let's go in reverse order. Damien, what recommendation do you have for Friday?
Well, I have Godzilla #1, King of the Monsters from Marvel Comics.
My brother had that comic many years ago. It disappeared decades ago. So I wish I would have been able to hold on to that.
It was kind of the perfect vehicle for Herb Trimpe artwork. And a more obscure one that I highly recommend to everybody is Rima the Jungle Girl. This is issue 1. It only went for 8 issues, and it's not at all the Tarzan ripoff you would think it would be. And it has incredible artwork in it by Nestor Redondo.
Ooh, yeah.
So I throw another one out there, or is that enough?
Sure, go ahead. One more. Let's do.
Well, this is a real obvious one for us old YouTubers.
It's on my list.
One.
All right, Commandy. Was that you said that was #1?
Classic Jack Kirby series that I don't know, 10 years ago when the 3 of us were all on YouTube, everyone was collecting Commandy, and no one talks about it anymore. But still a favorite of mine.
All right.
That was it Rima?
Rima.
Sorry. Is that like Jungle Girl from Dynamite, or?
No, it says Rima the Jungle Girl, but she's actually more like a spirit of the jungle.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to describe.
Kind of like Cheetah?
No. It's almost like magical realism or something.
Which
in its flavor.
So what year did that come out, Damien? Do you know?
It does say first issue collector's item on it. So
yeah,
don't they all?
I'm guessing by the trade dress and the way it's presented.
It's 1974.
I was going to say 73 or 74.
Yeah. So every issue has Joe Kubert covers, but then inside is Nestor Redondo, who was a really good Filipino artist. And I
Mhm.
think this may be his best work that I've encountered.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because now I gotta go visit some online shops and get some Rima.
And the
That's-
backups are
that's no
all Alex Nino artwork on
Mm.
this science fiction story called The Space Voyagers.
Yeah, this sounds great.
So yeah, and it's again not a very expensive thing to collect.
All right, Matt. What do you have for your alternate recommendations?
Let's see. I thought a good first edition of Berserk might be a good recommendation. Something off the beaten path. Relevant right now since the creator just passed.
Right.
So I don't know. A little light reading, leather bound. Yeah,
How many
something for the
pages is that
kids.
thing?
Does it say?
That looks like 300-400.
Oh, 670 is in the back.
Oh,
So
okay. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
I have about 10 of these volumes to chew through right now. So
How many have you read so far?
I'm in the middle of the second one, but I got waylaid because my monthly books came in. Speaking of, in there, I had a first appearance that was a tickle for me, and I doubt any of you have read. Amazing Spider-Man 88, the first appearance of the Queen Goblin.
Wait, you're right on
You're
that.
right.
I have not read that.
I just say, if you're a longtime Spider-Man fan, this run and this issue in particular is a treat, and it's really an old favorite. Who's the Goblin Queen, of course. So, or Queen Goblin, sorry. So, I don't know. I'd throw that on the pile, but I know none of you care about Spider-Man.
Well,
Some of the viewers might, or listeners.
Yeah, you just wait. Hold on to that thought, Matt. Is that all your recommendations then?
Yes.
Okay, Travis, what are your alternates?
So I
for
didn't
Friday?
actually drag alternate books out of my pile. One of them was Commandy, issue number 1. Everybody should read Command. If you haven't, everyone, it should just be a comic book requirement. If you're serious about comic books, you should read Commandy.
Well, come on
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Come on, it's got 4-legged grasshoppers in it. You get a ride. So
Talking
telling
animals
you.
are fun.
I'm telling you. So yeah. Obscure titles. Casanova, a image book. I guess it
Nice.
also got printed as an icon book. Also, my preference is the original printing of it. Came out in the 2000s. It's a Matt Fraction and Gabriel Ba book. It was done in 3 colors. They only used 3 colors because they didn't want to pay for all the other colors, basically. The downside to that printing of it is they used a cheap computer for the lettering, so the lettering is not as good as in the reprints of it. And I'm assuming that their reprinted image version that is in full color is probably the better read as far as that goes and more accessible. But I really like the original. It had a completely different kind of look to it. It was a dollar comic. It was all part of the craze of when Warren Ellis's Engine website stuff was still up and whatnot, and he was going to do a dollar book. He did Fell, and Matt kind of jumped on that. Let's do it for $1 and see what we can sell. He probably didn't make any money off the damn thing, but I do think that it put his name out enough that then, of course, he got all the Marvel work that he got and whatnot. And the only other one that I thought of was Crisis on Infinite Earth being basically the number, the first, in my mind, the first event book. God bless it for what it created in the years to come. But it was, I still enjoy it. It's Perez art, and Perez is currently on my mind with his health being the way it is and whatnot. And it was amazing for what it was at the time.
Yeah.
Agreed. Wow. Oh, God, you guys are picking out such good books. Okay, my picks for this. So funny you say Perez, Travis. My one of my picks is new Tales of the Teen Titans, 44, which is the first appearance of Nightwing, the Dick Grayson Nightwing, anyway. So I chose this because, like I said, Travis and I we would read New Teen Titans together. So had to pick that one. Since I'm going in this order. So all of these books actually have something to do with you gentlemen. So, but they're also firsts in other ways. So my pick for Matt here is this is Marvel Tales number 98, which is
Nice.
I do have the other one, the actual
Oh wow.
Ooh.
Amazing
So do
Spider-Man
I, but that's
121.
awesome.
So, but Marvel Tales number 98 was my very first Spider-Man issue, and it's also
Oh, wow.
I don't know, is it do you guys consider this like the first, I don't know, major death of a character with Gwen Stacy dying in the book?
And some people consider it the first issue of the Bronze Age.
That's true.
Although that's very arguable, I would argue.
Yeah,
against
yeah,
that,
yeah,
but a lot
yeah.
of people think so.
And then
Very
finally,
arguable, you'd argue, huh?
finally, for the book for Damien is one of the very first, if not the first book that we ever got together and talked about on the podcast was Danger Club number 1. So we spent a good 4 hours going over that miniseries,
At least, maybe even more.
So and it's one of my favorite series to this day.
Yes, it would be nice if there was some kind of follow-up.
Walker said,
"What's that one about? I've never heard of it."
Danger Club. Well, okay. So much like the Titans, it's a book of teenager or young superhero characters taken to the nth degree of violence and craziness. So it's like a mixture of New Teen Titans meets when did Image start?
Okay.
90s Image extreme type stuff. So, but very well constructed by the writer and artist. So.
Lots and lots of layers. You can listen to us talk about it for 4 to 8 hours.
Yes.
All right. Sounds better than buying it.
All right. So we've gotten several great books here to choose from for Friday. So who wants to throw out what's the what book of those should we pick for Friday?
Clearly, the common denominator is Commandy.
Commandy. I knew you at least would say something. You or Damien we're going to nominate Commandy.
I was going to say Casanova. I didn't know that about the single
Infinite
color
Earths.
Oh, see, I was going to say Rima. So I guess
we all agree my picks are out. So there's some consensus.
We're afraid we'll hurt ourselves reading Berserker.
They're all great books. They're all great books. So, all right. So yeah, it seems like Commandy, since it was chosen twice, maybe we should, obviously, Travis made a compelling argument for how important of a comic book it is to anybody who enjoys comic books. So, do you guys agree? Should we choose Commandy for Friday?
Sure.
I mean, you can't go wrong reading Commandy, right? You really can't.
I think that's debatable, but
Good
I will
way to end
go
the
with
work
it.
week.
That's true. All right. So so we've all talked about some amazing comics that you can go out and read and enjoy. So let's see. Let's run down the list again. I'll start off from Monday. My pick was E-Man number 1 from First Comics. Travis, what was your pick for Tuesday?
It was Infinity Inc. number 1.
And Matt for Wednesday,
Fantastic Four number 1. However you can get it.
That's right. Excellent. And finally for Thursday,
Rogue Trooper.
And
then Friday,
Commandy. All right.
What a
wonderful set of comics. Not just for the days, but see, you fill your weekend. See, that's why we're doing all those other ones too. Is then you can fill your weekend with it. So you got a totally, like I said, a totally awesome week of comics. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me with this and enduring my ranting emails back and forth, trying to explain this concept to you. But it worked out really well. You guys did great. You chose some awesome comics. So I think that's it. So Travis, why don't you start us off? Why don't you remind the fine folks at home where they can find you, where if they want to interact with you and tell you how crazy you are that Commandy is one of the best comics ever, or something like that.
Sure. So you can find me on YouTube at Oddfellows Thoughts. Also, if you really want to, you can harass me on Twitter too. That would be _Gaunt_man.
And I highly encourage you to you know, do that.
Harass me. Yeah.
Harass you. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. He takes it well. All right, Matt. Where can they find you? Where can they find stuff to watch?
Yeah, I'm on YouTube at YouTube. Yeah, Wednesday's Cereal spelled like killer, not like the stuff you eat. And then on Twitter, it's the Godam Milkman, so GODMANN Milkman. And also that podcast, Never Stay Dead, which is also oh so easy to find.
All right. And Damien, finally.
Yes, along with Never Stay Dead, you can look for Sleepy Reader 666 on YouTube or at Sleepy Reader 666 on Twitter.
All right. And of course, I will have links in the show notes for everything that these fine gentlemen just said. So you can definitely go harass Travis and find
I'm planning to do that right after this show.
find Matt and Damien's works as well. And for me, if people have forgotten already, you can harass me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Longbox Review. Let me know what you guys think about this format, this new approach. And I will say, I should have said this at the top of the show. I totally stole this idea from another podcast that I listened to. I thought it was great, but I wanted to apply it to comic books. So if you haven't already, go listen to the 430 Movie Podcast, where they do something very, very, very similar.
Do you have a theme for the next show?
I have a long list of themes that I could come back to, but we shall see what the future may hold for this, because trying to corral people, as you guys know, finding a time that works for everybody can be a little complicated. So this show will not be like every week or anything. It'll be maybe quarterly or so. We'll see how it goes. But anyway, let me know what you all think about it. I'd appreciate that. And with that, I think that's the end of the show. Say bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Toodles.
Bye.